I'm Craig Johnson, and this is Blink, a glimpse of the past. Today we approach the story of a martyr who has experienced things a many. His name is Rick Davis, and this is his story. The winds of North Carolina howled on the sandy shores. I'll never be able to go to the beach at this rate, I thought, exasperated at the weather. If only Freddie would let me pass the water limits. He knew how well I could surf. Huffing at the thought, I dried my hair as I walked past the rocky boundaries for the 100th time. Hell, I could walk this path with my eyes closed, avoiding every crack and bump. It was the path from the beach to my house, Pops' bait shop. Dad opened the business when I was born almost 21 years ago. We have people coming in and out of the bait shop all the time. It's practically a landmark of our town, Southport. I reminisce the times of playful songs and childhood trauma, experienced when stealing money from the counter. Can't believe sooner or later I'll have to discipline baby Mark to avoid inheriting the similar path to youthful thievery. I hope he has his mother's smarts. God knows we don't need another idiot running a bait shop. The chimes hanging above the door play a ditty that echoes throughout the store, bouncing off every shelf and fishing rod on display.
Preview.
Martha, you in here? In here, she says, from across the shop and inside the storage room. Would you believe this little devil? He walked on in here all by himself, she exaggerates, holding Mark. That's the third time this week, young man. All right, ice cream's on me later. Ooh, we haven't had ice cream in a while, haven't we? What's it been, 3 weeks? Martha asks with a clear desire in her voice. Has it? That's 3 weeks too many. My father calls from the shop. I enter the shop, and from the radio I could hear the draft lottery. Dad says they're picking out recruits for the lottery. My heart dropped. Please don't say 26, I thought to myself repeatedly. That's when I heard the words 58, 39, 26. It's only a year, I would explain to my wife. Worry and doubt would constantly occupy her expression. It seemed obvious she had no faith in the country to bring back her husband. But like a dog being hit by its owner, like a marionette controlled by the puppet master, she had no choice but to conform. A part of Martha died that very moment. I kissed my wife for what could have been the last time. From the moment my lips left her skin, felt like I was locked out of my life. Like a man with no home, like a man of no name. It was time for the platoon to set out. 20 men, dressed in green camouflage and handling M16 rifles. Oh, how I despised this rifle. The constant struggle of having your hands full as you march through thick jungles and natural terrain. Deep in the jungles of Saigon, a gust of wind runs through the leaves of the palm trees, like a warning to turn back. The platoon of men follow my lieutenant, Lieutenant Frank Johnson. The lieutenant was calculated and calm, like a jaguar prepared to pounce upon its prey. Numbers weren't looking good. We lost 2 platoons in a day and a half, but the lieutenant always seemed calm, like he secretly knew something we did not. We were headed to a nearby village. We had heard reports from our undercover Vietnamese men that the village was completely communist. They had permission to tear it down. Johnson loved search and destroy missions. He had a desire for aggression. The man was terrifying. I heard that lieutenant was a murderer before he joined the army, said Fletcher, a farmer from Arkansas. He done killed a priest that touched his daughter funny. Yeah, well, we're all murderers now, I mentioned as we were prepared to raid a village. You done yapping, rookies? Get your lighters ready, boys, Johnson announces. Like a pebble thrown into water, fear rippled into the village. The lieutenant had already begun lighting the houses on fire and kicking the doors in to destroy the traps awaiting us when we entered the huts. I hesitated to take out my lighter. I spent moments watching hell break loose upon a village. I think back to the time I enlisted into the army. No one mentioned the screaming involved. I mean, none of us speak Vietnamese, so it's the only way these Viet Cong could communicate. Scared screaming, angry screaming, or even confused screaming. The traumatized vocals caused shivers to run through my spine. Men, women, children. They trained us to think that they are nothing but shooting targets and playthings. Johnson began to line them all up in the middle of the village. "Davis, there's a runner on your 6. I need you to kill that son of a bitch," he calls. I hesitate, but begin to run after the woman. She heads into the jungle on the left from where we came from. It is impressive how fast someone can run when their lives are on the line. She made it about 12 meters into the jungle before I tackled her into the ground. We spent moments wrestling in the dirt as she attempted to scratch my eyes and throw dirt into them. It was then when I began to feel frustrated. It was a middle-aged woman, maybe 25 or so. She was on the shorter side and had a smell of coconut oil. Perhaps she was fresh out of the shower when we attacked. She escaped my submission as she tried to run deeper into the jungle, where I would definitely lose her. I got on my feet. I pounced her. I forced her head into the side of a tree. Blood came gushing out as she screamed in agony. I continued to pressure her head into the tree. I then lifted it, only to bash it into the bark once more. I kicked her knee in, causing her to fall into the ground. She had blood running down the side of her face and onto her cheap, handmade clothes. She sobbed as the side of her face now looked as red as an apple. Attempting to crawl her way to freedom, I stepped on her knee that was previously kicked in. It made a crunching noise similar to the noise of stepping on peanut shells. Now stomach down on the ground, the woman cried quietly. I continued to walk on top of her as I took out my rifle. I removed the strap from around my torso and held the firearm from the barrel. "Mercy," she whispered. "Mercy," she says with desperation. I look at her coldly. How can such a pathetic being speak such a higher language? She looks at me from the corner of her eye, filled with tears. All she saw was the uniform of an entity, the weapon of a murderer. I spit into her eye and begin to bash her skull in with the stock of my rifle. I must have hit her 20 or 30 times before one of the men came to stop me. The pool of dark red oozing into the dirt, mixing into the plants like fertilizer. I was just serving my country. I was just following orders. I was just doing what I was told. That's what I came to do, wasn't it? I had left the comfort of my home, the embrace of my wife, to fight for my country halfway across the world. It'll be all right. 4 days left until we can leave this country and my tour is over. It will all be worth it. All the killing, all the raping. It'll be worth it when I come home, as a hero who fought for his country, to come back to his loving wife and son. Tears came to my eyes when I first saw the skyline of California. May not be North Carolina yet, but it sure as hell beats the jungle with traps, and bombs and bullets. I felt like a dog whose leash was slowly loosening. Like the tension upon my neck was no more. As the helicopter landed on the ground, the sweet feeling of American soil touching the soles of my boots filled me with satisfaction. I was finally home. I was finally going to go back home to reclaim my name. I don't think anyone has called me Rick for a year. To hear it from Freddie as I walked down the beach brought warmth to my heart. But the greatest reward was awaiting me inside the bait shop. It looked just as I left it. Everything seemed perfect, like I was going to walk inside to see all my loved ones waiting for me. I knock on the door. A man answers it with Mark in his arms. "Daddy, who's this man at the door?" Mark asks. "Can I help you?" "We're clearly closed, buddy," he says. And just like that, I had no name to return to. I was locked out of the cage still, with my life belonging to the man that answered the door. Now I am no one. Thank you for joining us this week on Blink, A Glimpse of the Past. Next week, we will follow the life of Arnold Brown, a fighter pilot in World War II. Remember, live your life wisely, as can go in the blink of an eye.